Coming up on Locked On Dodgers, the Dodgers won again to stretch their current winning streak to 10 games, continuing their dominance in the month of August. It is now in its fourth year. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about Clayton Kershaw's latest start and what the plan is for him and Bobby Miller and the rest of the starting rotation over the rest of the regular season. And then we'll talk about Gus Varland joining a Dodgers bullpen that has suddenly looked really, really good. That's what's on tap. So let's get Locked On Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Dodger fans, this is Locked On Dodgers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Remember, this show is free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. Or even better, go ahead and subscribe wherever you're watching or listening right now. Then you can be an everydayer just like we are. If this is your first time with us, I am Jeff Snider. That guy next to me is Vince Samperio. Vince and I are both lifelong Dodger fans just like you are. We've also both spent time covering the Dodgers in the press box and the locker room. So we're not quite insiders, but we bring you the smart fans perspective on our boys in blue every weekday morning. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. Vince, what's your record in games you're at now?
I'm now at 18-1. So
18-1. All right. If this keeps up, you definitely got to go to every postseason game. I don't care about the travel. You need to be there. Yeah, good job, Vince.
Yeah, because that's 15-1 at Dodger Stadium. Or no, yeah, 15-1 at Dodger Stadium, and then 3-0 away from Dodger Stadium. So.
And the Dodgers just need. Hopefully, they'll only need to win 11 games in the postseason. So get it done, Vince. Speaking of winning 11 games, the Dodgers will be going for their 11th straight win later tonight when Lance Lynn takes on Corbin Burnes. Should be the toughest game of the series. Corbin Burnes is obviously the ace of the Brewers. Lance Lynn has been very good lately. I am a little nervous for Joey Wiemer's daddy hacks against Lance Lynn's fastballs. But, we'll see what happens. Should be a good game. Dodgers won 10 in a row now. They are now, what are they this month, 14-1? I think?
Yeah, something like that.
14-1 now this month.
Since the deadline, so yeah.
Yeah, which continues a crazy stretch over the last 4 years. Starting in 2020, the Dodgers have won about 80% of their games in August. This is the best they've done, but, they haven't lost more than 7 games in the month of August in the last 4 years. And they talked about this a little bit on the pregame show. ESPN tweeted it out after the game with the updated number. It's kind of ridiculous, Vince, because the first year of that stretch was 2020. And so, everything you kind of look for about, Dodgers have more depth, and so they're not as worn down as some other teams. It applies to 21 to 23, but 2020 was just August was the start of the season. So maybe 2020 is the outlier there. They were just easily the best team in baseball in 2020, and so that explains 2020. And then if we're looking at the last 3 years, is it depth? Is it trade deadline acquisitions? Is it guys getting healthy at the right time? Is it weather? What is it, Vince?
Probably a combination of all those. The number one thing is the Dodgers have had good teams the last, definitely the last 4 years. But trade deadline acquisitions, at least specifically for this year, have definitely helped. Especially they had that long string of lefties where they faced a lefty pretty much every night. Kike and Rosario came through. Lance Lynn has pitched very well, and all 3 times he's pitched for the Dodgers so far. Joe Kelly had pitched well up until he got hurt, and Ryan Yarborough's been a big boon to the bullpen as well. So this year specifically, yes, it's been trade deadline pieces. Years past, 2021, you added Max Scherzer and Trey Turner, so obviously that's going to add a boost to your team. Last year they added who did they add last year? Other people. I'm blanking on last year, but I would imagine they helped the team as well. So yeah, it's a combination of that. I think I honestly want to say the weather hurts because this is the dog days of summer. This is when the kind of the lull of the season for a lot of teams. But the Dodgers are playing in 85, 90 degree weather and not humid, rather than some of these teams around the country that are playing in 90 plus degree weather and humid. It's hard to get up every single day and be like, oh, this weather is disgusting. So I'm sure that factors into it. And then, just a matter of like I said, the Dodgers are a good team, and then the depth, because like I said, dog days of summer, guys are tired, whatever. The Dodgers, they can just plug in somebody else every time, seemingly every year other than 2021, they've been able to plug in somebody that would be a starter or close to a starter on every other team coming off the bench.
Yeah, last year the two big acquisitions were Joey Gallo and Chris Martin. Gallo made an impact early, ended up struggling later, but in August he was actually a pretty decent pickup. I remember him hitting a big home run against the Twins, who were now his current team, at Dodger Stadium last August at a game that I was at. And Chris Martin was huge in the bullpen. So definitely trade deadline acquisitions could help. The weather thing is interesting because obviously whoever the Dodgers are playing against in any given game is playing in the same weather as them, but that heat and humidity can wear you down over time, even when you're not currently in it. Just, I can't imagine like the Braves.
I spent a week in Miami in July, and when I came home, it took me 2 days to recover.
Yeah, the Marlins at least have a.
I wasn't even playing baseball.
Yeah, the Marlins are at least playing indoors, but living in the humidity. I don't know how the Braves do it. They don't got a dome there, and Atlanta gets hot and muggy in the summer. So it's crazy. The Braves are playing as well as they are, but the Braves are struggling.
Well, they've hacked PitchCom, so.
What's that?
They've hacked PitchCom, according to Mets fans.
Oh, is that the current theory?
Yeah.
Some people can't accept that a team's just good, huh? But yeah, I mean, but the Braves compared to the Dodgers are making a move on the Braves, and that could be because the Dodgers have nicer weather to play in. I feel like it's got to come down to like almost an intangible thing here, like whether it's leadership or just the makeup of the team that you do have. Like I said all along earlier this season, when people would ask me, I remember I was on a radio show and the guy was asking me about the D-backs and are they for real? And I said, I believe they're for real, but what remains to be seen is, do they have the experience and maturity to actually make it through 162 games at this level? And we've seen the answer. That was no. And I feel like the way the Dodgers put together teams, that they've got young players obviously, but they've also got core veterans, and I think it's that mix that whether it's something that Andrew Friedman and his team do deliberately as far as putting together this team, or if it's a happy accident, whatever it is, I feel like that maybe they're able to stay more focused. No matter how much you love baseball, it's got to get old in your 5th straight month of playing every day. I guess if you count spring training, your 6th straight month of playing every day, like, okay, come on. And the fact that they're able to stay focused, to, seeing things. I don't know if you talked about this on yesterday's episode, the Dodgers rally that was basically extended and started by Will Smith hustling on basically a routine ground ball. He gets on base on an error that, he wouldn't have been on if he hadn't been going full speed, because even with the throwing error, Carlos Santana almost got his foot back down in time. And that started a huge rally. And things like that, when your catcher is sprinting on a ground out, like that tells you something about the team that's more than just these guys are good at baseball, I feel like.
Yeah, that's part of it. And Roberts has talked about it a couple of times over the last week of, trusting that his team knows how to win. And that's something that's part of it, running out a ground ball in August in what seemingly was a routine ground ball. And even today, Roberts before the game was talking about leadership. And, he mentioned that, Hayward and Rojas and Freddie and Mookie are guys that he kind of has been counting on, some of them maybe to go out of their comfort zone in order to kind of be the leaders of this team. And, not just lead by example, but also lead by, different ways. And, Rojas, after they lost that Royal Series, won that ugly Royal Series, and, he talked about urgency. And Rojas was a guy at that time that was OPSing around 500, I believe. So, there's different ways to go about it. Every year they have that, that Justin Turner is the first year they don't have him in that sense. But, yeah, there's a lot of factors that go into it that go on top of the Dodgers having good talent. Good talent doesn't always win, as we've seen around the league and as we've seen even this year in the Dodgers division. You have to have everything and all the intangibles and everything else, especially, I am not anywhere near, top physical shape, but even me just going to multiple games in a week is exhausting. So, playing every day, I can't imagine how those guys get up every single day and ready to go.
Yeah, it's been fun to watch, so that's for sure. Clayton Kershaw returned on last week and made a second start back on Wednesday night. Only went 5 innings again. We'll talk about that, the decision to take him out, and kind of the plan that the Dodgers have for him and Bobby Miller and the rest of the rotation the rest of the way. So thanks for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen, and please keep it Locked On Dodgers. This episode is brought to you by Nutrafol. I'm not an overly vain man. I'm not in great shape. I've never been considered for People Magazine's Sexiest Man Alive, as far as I know. But one thing I've always had going for me is my hair. And as I'm approaching my late 40s, I've noticed that my hair is starting to thin just a little bit. Probably not so much that anyone else would even notice, but I want to get out ahead of it. So that's why I was so excited to get my Nutrafol in the mail the other day. Did you know that 80% of men will experience hair thinning in their lifetime? It's normal, but it doesn't have to be your fate. You can get ahead of thinning with Nutrafol. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement, clinically shown to improve your hair growth, visible thickness, and visible scalp coverage. Nutrafol's hair growth supplements use physician-formulated, natural, science-backed ingredients. Their drug-free, patented technology provides consistent, reliable results without compromising your sexual health. Nutrafol supports healthy hair growth from within by targeting root causes of thinning, such as stress, hormones, environment, nutrition, lifestyle, and metabolism through whole body health. And it works. In a clinical study, 84% of men showed improvement in their hair after 6 months of taking Nutrafol men's hair growth supplements. Take the first step to visibly thicker, healthier hair. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com/men and enter the promo code LOCKEDONMLB. Find out why over 4,000 healthcare professionals recommend Nutrafol for healthier hair. Nutrafol.com/men, spelled Nutrafol.com/men, and enter promo code LOCKEDONMLB. That's Nutrafol.com/men. Promo code LOCKEDONMLB. We are back. We want to thank you again for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Especially want to thank our everydayers. If you are with us every day, we love you. We appreciate you. If you're not with us every day, hey, join the Everydayer Club. All you got to do, watch or listen every weekday morning. And for those of you, every once in a while, we don't get it out quite as early as we plan. We apologize for that. We got yelled at in YouTube today by a fan in Indiana. Sorry about that. We'll do better. You know,
I'm bad at falling asleep sometimes, and then I wake up and it's like 3 a.m. and I'm like,
I think the problem is you're too good at falling asleep sometimes, Vince.
Yeah, sure.
Anyway, I also want to remind you can catch every Dodger game on the radio, the Dodgers radio broadcast on Sirius XM or the SXM app, just by searching for Dodgers. So Kershaw made his second start since coming off the injured list, went 5 innings, allowed 1 run, just a solo homer to Mark Canha, and looked good, but not quite dominant. And he said after the game, basically, he said it's better to be lucky than good. Things weren't good out there. There's nothing to build on from this. Just got to pitch better next time. Some of that is, I think it's awesome that Clayton Kershaw can allow 1 run in 5 innings and lower his ERA to 2.48 and have his takeaway be, I need to pitch better. But the fact is, he only struck out 2 batters in those 5 innings. He also walked 2, had some hard hit outs. Freddie made a couple nice plays. Mookie made a nice play in the outfield. There was some good defense behind him. And overall, it was, not his most dominant game. And so that was part, I think, of why he was pulled after 5 innings and 75 pitches. Dave Roberts had said before the game he was good to go 80 or 90 pitches. And they pulled him a little bit before that. Some of it was probably effectiveness, but also, when you pair it with what Robert said about Bobby Miller before the game, it almost seems like maybe those two guys are on kind of a parallel plan as far as the Dodgers' plans for them to get them ready for October, right?
Yeah, I mean, he said Kershaw would be 80, 90, depending on stress. He didn't have that many stressful outings, but like I said, he just wasn't quite there. Wasn't getting the swing and miss. Didn't have all his pitches. It was a good time to pull him. And with Miller, the same thing the night before. It was the right time. There was no need to push him further, especially considering that the Dodgers had an off day Monday. Only didn't use any relievers other than Yarbrough on Tuesday, and then Wednesday they kind of needed the guys to get some work just to get their arms going. So it worked out for them. But yeah, in general. And Roberts has been asked this a couple of times the last few days about mindset, mentality, now that they are so up in the division and, seemingly have it locked up and, blah, 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 all this other stuff. and Roberts kind of said, they're still playing to win, but he'll find pockets or ways or, different areas to get guys some rest or to, take advantage of the fact that they are winning or the fact that they do have the lead and the fact that in some of these games they're up 5 runs already in the 5th inning and there's no need to push them. And I think obviously it can go a few ways. We don't want it to be like last year. If you believe that, that them not playing meaningful games in the month of September was kind of tough. The guys were still playing it just, a little bit hard to get amped up. If you believe in that, then yeah, it's tough to kind of see it again. But I think Roberts is going to find the spots where he needs it. Last week in Arizona, he let Bobby Miller go that extra inning that he normally wouldn't have let him go. And, it didn't quite work out, but they let him go that, go to it. Yesterday, there was no reason to push them past the 6th inning, 74 pitches because they were up by 5. If any stress became of it, it was because he created that stress, which is not, beneficial. So I think they're going to find the times when they need them. But I think at this point, almost like every August, we start talking about they're starting to play for October and get ready for October and make sure that, they know what they have.
Yeah, we had a commenter on our YouTube say that the Dodgers need to be stretching these starters out so they don't repeat last year. I assume he's talking about Tyler Anderson getting pulled. A lot of people think Tyler Anderson was pulled too early in Game 4 of the NLDS last year. My point there is whether Anderson was pulled too early or not, Tommy Kahnle was going to pitch in that game. The problem was that Tommy Kahnle sucked that game, and then Yancy Almonte came in and sucked. Kahnle and Almonte were two of the Dodgers' top relievers. They were going to pitch in that game, whether it was the 6th inning or the 7th inning or the 8th inning or whatever. They were going to pitch. And so, the problem wasn't Tyler Anderson. The problem that whole series was the Dodgers couldn't hit with runners in scoring position. But that specific game, it was that, the relievers came in, Kahnle couldn't throw strikes. Almonte had a little bit of bad luck. The umpire, if the umpire makes the right call on Ha-Seong Kim, then Max Muncy isn't playing in to protect against the bunt because there are 2 strikes. Ha-Seong Kim's double is a ground out to end the inning. Not that series is etched in my mind or anything, but it's the Dodgers are very likely going to have 3 or 4 starting pitchers in their postseason bullpen. Guys who have been starters, Ryan Yarbrough, Tony Gonsolin, Walker Buehler, maybe, whichever of, we don't, Michael Grove, some of these guys could end up in the Dodgers bullpen. And so the role that Ryan Yarbrough played on Tuesday of, hey, our starter went 6 and now Yarbrough is going to finish it off. The Dodgers are going to have that option in the postseason too. And especially in the first series, when they're only going to need 3 starters, either Lance Lynn is probably added to that bullpen. Maybe they'll have those options. And so I don't think it's that important that guys go deep, especially, Bobby Miller only going 5 innings in an August game doesn't mean he's not going to be able to go 6 in a postseason. If he's cruising and, and the pitch count warrants and everything, he'll go 6 in the postseason, especially if the Dodgers are, if the score is right. And it's always a balancing act that a manager has to play where, well, we're up by a lot, so it's easy innings, so let's let the starter keep going, or we're up by a lot, so let's get the starter out of there because we don't need his dominance anymore. And that's a balancing act, and it's a hard one. And, Dave Roberts maybe hasn't always done it perfectly in the postseason, but I don't think there's anything about this current approach that is going to cause guys like Miller and Kershaw to not be built up enough in the postseason.
Yeah, especially Kershaw. He knows what it is. With Miller, kind of like I said, I'd rather Miller go an extra inning in a 2-1 game and see what he, see, that's something where you learn you're about yourself. You learn about everything about yourself. Miller going an extra inning in a 6-1 game, I'm not as concerned about because he's already built up he's thrown close to 100 pitches, if not 100 pitches already this season. He's built up already. But yeah, and specifically for Miller, I would like, if there's close games the rest of the way to stretch him out, I would understand it. Kershaw, he doesn't need to be treated like that because he's already been through it. Julio, same thing. He's been through, all these other guys have been through it. Lance Lynn, not with the Dodgers specifically, but he's been through that. I think Miller is kind of the only one where, okay, if it's 2-1 in the 6th inning and Bobby Miller's at 90 pitches, let's see what he can do. Let's see how many outs he can get the next inning before he gets to close to 100.
Yeah, absolutely. And then that calculus changes in the postseason.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Gus Varland made his Dodgers debut against the only other team that he's pitched with in the big leagues, the Brewers. He looked really good. We'll talk about him and the Dodgers bullpen that now that they're getting some rest because the starters are doing their job, it's a pretty darn solid bullpen. So thanks for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen, and please keep it Locked On Dodgers. This episode is brought to you by Sleeper. You want a chance to win more money with less picks? Head to Sleeper, the #1 sports app where you can win up to 100 times your money on just 2 or more fantasy baseball picks. Do you think Max Muncy or Freddie Freeman can hit a home run against Corbin Burns tonight? On Sleeper, you can swing for the fences with up to 100 times payouts. All you have to do is choose 2 or more players that you like and select more or less on their stat categories like home runs, strikeouts, hits, and more. Get your picks right, and you could win big. Since partnering with Locked On, Sleeper has become the #1 sports app on the App Store. Correlation doesn't always equal causation, of course, but sometimes it does. And dynamic payouts are live. What are dynamic payouts? In short, each player projection now has a multiplier attached to it as opposed to preset multipliers based on the number of legs in a contest. With dynamic payouts also comes more stat categories to place contests on. You can get higher payouts than other apps with less picks. Use promo code Locked On and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 30 states. Check out Sleeper today. And we are back. We want to thank you again for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Want to remind you again that you can catch every Dodger game on the radio, the Dodgers radio broadcast on Sirius XM or the SXM app. Just launch the SXM app and search for Dodgers. You can also listen to this show on the SXM app by searching for Locked On Dodgers. So Gus Varland, he's had kind of a long and winding road since last December. He was in the Dodgers minor league system. His brother Louis made his major league debut for the Twins last year. I remember when Louis Varland debuted, Gus Varland was in the stands, and he told, I think I was watching it on the Twins channel, and he told the sideline reporter who came and talked to the family that the Dodgers had given him permission to leave his AAA team for a couple days to go watch his brother's debut, which was pretty awesome. And I looked at Varland's stats at the time and thought, oh, well, maybe that's why they said, sure, take a couple days off because you're not really doing that much for us anyway. He seemed to be a guy who always had pretty decent stuff, but hadn't quite put it together. He was taken by the Brewers in the Rule 5 draft in December. And so if you're not familiar with the Rule 5 draft, if you get chosen in the Rule 5 draft, the team that picks you has to keep you on their big league roster all year, or the big league injured list if you're hurt. But you can't be sent to the minors without being offered back to the team they took you from. So Varland was in the big leagues, and eventually the Brewers wanted to send him to the minors. They didn't want him on their active roster anymore, so they had to offer him back to the Dodgers. The Dodgers said, sure, we'll take him back. And he's been back in the Dodger system for a couple months now and pitching pretty well in AAA. And they called him up when Joe Kelly went on the injured list the other day. We said on this show that they might consider going with 14 hitters instead of 13 pitchers, and instead of adding Varland to the 40-man roster. But instead, they put Jake Marisnick on the 60-day IL to open up a 40-man roster spot, added Varland to the 40-man roster, and put him on the active roster. And he finally debuted on Wednesday, pitched the last 2 innings of the game. And it started off shaky. He walked the first batter he faced and wasn't super close with most of the 4 balls that he threw. And then he just turned around, got a double play grounder, and then looked dominant. The last 4 batters just looked really, really good. The fastball was up around 97, sharp cutter, sharp curveball. I think I saw a knuckle curve. Is that one of the pitches, Vince? I think you have his pitch breakdown in front of you, don't you? Is there a knuckle curve in there?
They only have slider, four seam on his thing.
Okay, so so not even a cutter? Joe Davis called one of them a cutter, so I guess it's just the slider has a couple different shapes. I thought I saw the finger like it on one of the replays of one of the ones that had good movement.
He might not have enough like to differentiate yet.
Could be, but yeah, whatever it is, it looked really good. It was playing really well off the fastball. And what was it, Vince? 13 swings and how many swings and misses?
13 swings, 7 swings and misses, 5 of 8 on the slider, 2 of 5 on the four seamer. Yeah,
and so I mean, that getting that many swings and misses even on a fastball, obviously it's a tiny sample size. It's 5 pitches, 2 swings and misses, but the fastball had life. It's not a straight 97. It had movement and plays really well off the slider. There were a couple, I think I remember both fastballs that people swung and missed at, because like I remember thinking, wow, that it wasn't like a perfect location. It was just a pitch that's hard to hit. And we see it with Lance Lynn, kind of a similar thing. It's like, you know what he's going to throw you, and you're still swinging and missing at it. So there must be, Lance Lynn does a lot of different movements with his fastball, different variations. But so I don't know if Varland has a deception or just late life or whatever it is, but he looked really, really good. And it's not really surprising because he's actually pretty good with the Brewers. His ERA looks terrible because he had one game where he allowed 9 runs in 2/3 of an inning, I think, to the Cardinals. But other than that, I think he had 8 appearances with the Brewers and 6 of them were scoreless. But one of them was really, really bad, enough to get him sent back to the Dodgers. But his big weakness with the Brewers was walking too many guys. And I noticed his AAA stats since coming back to the Dodgers, he has cut down the walks drastically. And I think that was always his problem in the minors, but he was just walking too many guys. And he's always had good stuff, but can he command it? And, with the caveat that it's one game, after that first batter tonight, like it looked like he can command that stuff.
Yeah. And when you come into the game, when you're up, 6-1, 7-1, whatever it was at that point, you're looking to just throw strike. And when he walked the first guy on 4 pitches, and I was sitting next to Matt Moreno from Dodger Blue, and he kind of looked at me like, "No, really, we're just trying to get through these last 2 innings. He's gonna, do this." And I was like, he just wanted to get a double play. He ended up getting the double play, But either way, like I said, after that, those last 2 innings flew by after that because he was throwing strikes, was getting swings and misses, got a couple strikeouts in there, and yeah, looked good. Yes, small sample size. Yes, the Brewers offense isn't that great, but the Brewers offense is, has guys that are major league players at the very least. And, that's all. And like, you can only pitch against who you're tasked to pitch against in that day. So yeah, I don't think there's enough runway for him to do anything, especially if, Joe Kelly's supposed to throw a bullpen on Friday, and then eligible to come off whenever 10 days after that or whatever, however many days. And then, Almonte, I don't think we've heard from in a couple of days, but if he's back, there's probably not much runway for him. But if those guys stay hurt or if other people get hurt, it would be cool to see Varland at least a couple more times before any of those guys return, just to see, what it does play up against. The Dodgers are going to play against a bunch of teams that are in a playoff spot or fighting for a playoff spot here over the next, couple weeks. So there's a chance for him to at least show that, hey, I might have the chance to help if called upon.
Yep. The other 2 relievers who pitched on Wednesday night were Brusdar Graterol and Ryan Brazier. Graterol hit his first batter and then got a double play. He just wanted to get a double play too. And I think he ended up throwing 7 pitches total, even after hitting the first batter. Brazier looked awesome. Like, he's been such a good pickup. And he's another one that, like, I'd have to really, really study to figure out why he's so hard to hit, because his stuff doesn't look dominant, but he has been so good.
Yeah, he got 5 swings and misses on 9 swings last night. So, he hasn't really had the strikeout stuff so far with the Dodgers, but if he can start discovering some of that, I was talking about how, the Dodgers at Dodger Stadium, 10 strikeouts is the free jumbo jack, 6 runs is 6 nuggets at McDonald's. I think the Dodgers have probably had the 6 nuggets more than the jumbo jack this season. So it'd be nice to kind of see those strikeouts start perking up a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. And, Evan Phillips has only pitched 4 times in these 15 games this month, because the starting pitching is going deep. And I think that's good for Phillips, let him be rested. I'm sure they'll crank him up more in September as they get closer to the postseason, but I think it's probably welcome rest for him because he was worked pretty heavily. Overall, the bullpen's been really good, and a lot of that goes back to the starting pitching being really good, and a lot of that goes back to the offense being really good and letting the starters pitch with very little pressure. So all in all, like, it's been a full team effort for this 10-game winning streak and this awesome August.
Yeah, it's fun to watch.
Yeah. I think that's it. You got anything else, Vince?
Nothing. I will not be at tonight's game, so if they lose, blame me, but have prior commitments. So
Vince is ducking Corbin Burns, is what he's saying. That'll do it for us. Thank you all for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen. Especially thank you to our everydayers. You can join the Everydayers Club. All you got to do is watch or listen every weekday morning. Remember, you can catch every Dodger game, the Dodgers radio broadcast, on Sirius XM or the SXM app. Simply launch the SXM app and search for Dodgers. You can also listen to this podcast there by searching for Locked On Dodgers. You can listen to us wherever you get podcasts, or you can watch us on YouTube. Just search for Locked On Dodgers. You can follow us on Instagram and on Twitter at Locked On Dodgers. Vince is on Twitter at VinceSense91. I'm on Twitter at Snydog, and the DMs are open in all those places. Our email address is lockedondodgers@gmail.com, and our phone number for voicemails or text messages is 323-863-LOCK, 5625. We are here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us. When you get in your car or sit on your couch, tell your smart device to play podcast Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Have a good one.